Hey everyone, I hope you're doing great and you're following the 3H's of the channel. In this video, it's all about the country of Ireland. So, if that sounds like something you're interested in, pull up a stump with me and let's get into it. Thank you for watching. Okay, so I don't usually ever talk about this. I don't post about it. I generally just like to forget that it ever happened. And the reason why that I don't talk about it is because the whole story sounds like bullshit. It happened a long time ago now, but it's something that I would still need some answers on. I don't usually frequent circles that deal with the paranormal. I don't have any friends that deal with the paranormal. I mainly just do video games, and I didn't believe in any of this before all this happened. So I'm from Ireland, and this happened in the woods near my house. It's screwing with me because these woods are so close to my house. It's maybe a 5-minute walk away, and you're just there. There was a load of history about these woods too, but nothing about what I saw. The history is that way back when the British were taking over Ireland, a bunch of people barred themselves into this old tower in the woods to get away from them, but the Brits just surrounded the tower and let them starve inside. It was some pretty gruesome shit. So sorry if I'm not describing it really well, but I'm not generally good at telling stories. But back to what happened. So there's this place in the woods that we like to hang out by, and that place is called Lover's Leap. It's a cliff facing a river and a load of lush green fields. It's beautiful. We've been there so many times, and nothing strange ever happened at all. The weekend that this all happened, we decided to go camping there. Our exams are starting soon, and it's our last chance to get together and have a good piss up. So 7 of us go. 4 lads, 2 girls, and myself. We bring 3 tents, and one of them are those big 10-person tents. We generally do most of our drinking and banter, usually in one of these. I brought my own 2-person tent, which is old and it's got holes in it, so if we didn't get good weather that day, I'd basically be screwed, and Jason brought his own tent too. So we get there midway through the day, and it's actually a super nice day. We were lucky. We were having a good time. But David gets a phone call from his mother saying that she needs a lift to her sister's house, so he has to go and do that, and leaves us with 6. Now, we're after a few drinks and getting numb drunk. Not too bad, but laughing fairly loudly. Our laughing is kind of echoing all over the side of the cliff. People here and there are walking their dogs down on the opposite side of the river, and we start messing with them as they walk by, being stupid. But the banter kind of calms down as Sarah and Jason go to get some wood for a fire. And we all know that they didn't go off just to get wood for a fire. They went off to eat face. So we joke about that for a little bit. But Philip is staring out across the river to a group of trees. I wouldn't even call it a forest. It's like along the path where people walk their dogs. And then there's a bunch of trees, and after that are those green fields that I was talking about earlier. And Philip kind of like smiles and nods forward, like for me to look where he's looking, and he says in a low voice, as if he's worried, that whoever that is like a mile away, he's going to hear us. I say, is somebody watching us from across the river? I thought he was messing though, so I played along, because Rebecca turns her head and is like, what? That's not funny. Seriously, is there somebody there? And when she said that, I thought that he was still trying to mess with her, so I played along, saying stuff like, oh yeah, he's got a trench coat. Are those binoculars I see? But then I hear Philip say, no, he's not. Look over there, by that tree, the one that just kind of slits into 2. So I realized that he's not kidding, and I looked toward it. It sent chills down my back. I swear I couldn't even see it that well. I'm getting slightly blurred vision from the drink, but I can still see this thing. He's standing like halfway behind a tree, almost upright, but its upper body is kind of tilted at an angle so he can look out from behind the tree. Now, as I've mentioned before, I don't like creepy things. I stay away from it. I mainly focus on video games. That's not to say that since this time I haven't seen supernatural stuff here and there, but then again, it's Ireland. Everyone has. It's nothing much worth quoting. So when I see this guy back then just standing alone in the woods, I get chills. I get a prompt of, what the hell? Rebecca comes over my shoulder, like she's looking out behind me, as if I'm going to protect her or something, and says, where? Philip points. As soon as he points, this guy just darts. But it felt more animal-like. Like you know when a cat is watching something for a while, but when it gets scared, it just launches itself away. It was like that. You could barely even see it leave. It just turned, and it was just gone. Rebecca says, there's nothing there, laughs, and calls us dicks for messing with her. I turn to look at Philip. He's not smiling anymore. He's just lost a bit of color, and I'm pretty sure I have too. But I'm just reassuring myself that it was probably, hopefully, just an animal, and it got spooked. It couldn't have been a man anyway. The way it just ran. The eyes were off too. I couldn't tell what it was though, at the time. Anyway, everyone else's buzz eventually brings me back into spirits. Philip is still a bit off, but he's joining in too. Jason and Sarah come back, and they've got the biggest smiles on their faces, so I'm pretty sure that they'll be sleeping in the same tent tonight. I stop drinking though. You know, like when you know that something is going to happen on a night and you want to be more aware in case it does happen for real. But John is getting absolutely hammered. By 8, he's basically paralyzed, slurring his words and stuff. Jason and Sarah are all up in each other, and Philip seems to have the opposite idea as I do, trying to drink away what he saw. Then David gets back, and he's exhausted. He's been running, but he starts laughing and calls us cowards. We all look at each other and then look at him like, what do you mean? And he keeps saying to stop playing dumb. He knows that it was us, and all of us genuinely do not know what he's talking about. We keep asking, and he keeps telling us, you guys know what you did. He's going through our bags like he's looking for something. Philip eventually gets him to talk by saying that he was too drunk to stand up and he didn't know what happened. He tells us, one of you smartasses was in a costume and scared the shit out of me. He's talking about back on the path. I get that chill of terror through me again, and I look straight at Philip, who looks at me and shakes his head as if not to say anything. I don't get why. He was pretty worried about ruining the buzz or something, but I keep quiet and question further. He said that he was walking down the path that we always used, and there was somebody standing behind a tree, but it wasn't looking at him. It was facing away, kind of looked like they were shivering. He said it was like someone was trying to mimic the Grudge Girl or something. He calls out to it and yells, stop screwing around, I'm not in the mood. But the thing just doesn't move. It just stays standing there. But the twitching seems to calm down and almost stop. So he tries to act not scared and says, whatever, I'm going back and getting drunk. Nice try though. He didn't say all this originally. I got the full story a few times in the tents later that night. So he says as he's walking that this thing is keeping up with him, that he can hear footsteps, but every time he turns around, that thing is just looking, half of it behind a tree. Its back is turned. He's trying to act like the hired man, but he's walking faster, and he knows it. What makes him run, though, is when he turns around the last time, and this thing is like right next to him on the path, maybe 5 feet to his side, and it's turned around now, but he couldn't see much of the face. There was long, greasy hair kind of covering it, but the eyes were all off. He described it though, and it sounded like whatever he saw would describe what I had seen. He said it was like the eyes were reversed, like the part of your eye that's supposed to be in white was black, and where it was meant to be black, it was white, but it was more like the eyes were hollowed with this white dot in them. I got way too freaked out, and I had to tell him what we saw earlier and everything. At first he thought we were kidding, but we let him check our bags, and he could tell by the look on my face that we were not kidding. The girls are getting scared, and Jason is only being informed as to everything that's happened. He gets panicked, and he's like, "Did any of you come out and try to spy on us when we were shifting?" And we all said no. This was meant by a whole hail of, "This isn't funny at all." Him and Sarah are now fighting over each other, trying to tell us that while they were in the woods making out, that somebody was spying on them. But Jason shouted, and it disappeared. Slowly though, like it was limping, but different, like it was walking through thick snow. We're all getting freaked out now, and it's getting dark. We all want to leave, but none of us want to go through the woods at this time. So we start the fire and stay close to it. Nobody is in the mood for drinking anymore, even though most of it is gone anyways. Everyone seems pretty sobered up, except for John, who was just obliterated drunk. He's telling everybody that everything is fine, and that we're all just dumbasses and overreacting. He's the worst when he's drunk. He speaks like a broken record. It was bad though. It was like as it got darker, any chance we had of getting out of the woods that night was going with it. And for some reason the darkness that night was just like fog. The light just wasn't reaching as far as it should have, and the air was thick and clammy. The worst was the noise though. There was nothing. The only thing we could hear over the fire was the river running and a branch breaking from a tree here and there. The worst was that we were all pretty quiet too. Some of it was fear, but a lot of it, at least for me, was just listening, trying to hear if there was anything in the woods. For ages though, it was nothing, and some of the lads would fire off a joke here and there trying to lighten the mood and bring the party feeling back. Eventually, Jason and Sarah decided that they'd retire early, for obvious reasons. John passed out not long after that, so we put him to bed, and the rest of us went to bed after that. I managed to get Rebecca into my tent, my excuse being that it would be good to have 2 people in each tent, just in case. David argued that 4 of us in the big tent would be a better idea, but I had my own motives with Rebecca, so I managed to convince him. I won't go into details, but things went off with me and Rebecca. I played the protective card, and it worked. So we're moving around in the tent, and the fabric of our sleeping bags is making a good bit of noise as we're moving. In fact, I'm pretty sure if anybody was awake, that they could definitely hear what's going on, and I'm also pretty sure that if we stopped making noise, we'd be able to hear Jason and Sarah going at it too. Sorry if this is long-winded, by the way. It happened a while ago, and I'm trying to recall every detail as vividly as I can. Anyway, we stopped because I think I hear a noise, and there was complete silence, because Jason told me later that he had heard the same thing, and they stopped too. I kept Rebecca quiet, and listened for maybe 40 seconds. She whispers that stupid saying, "It's not funny anymore," and I shake my head to tell her to stop talking. Eventually, I hear it. A single footstep. I'm not sure if somebody stepped out to go to the bathroom, so I text David and Jason to ask. I've seen enough horror movies by that point to know that you don't make a scene of yourself, so my phone didn't even have vibrate when I texted, and I hid the light underneath my sleeping bag. I got 2 nopes in response to my question. I heard a few more footsteps. It sounded like whoever it is just lingering around our campsite, not getting close to any of the tents. Like staying at a radius is the best way I can describe it. It's just a question now of who will have the balls to speak up first. Eventually, Jason shouts out from his tent when he hears the footsteps. By this point, they're kind of getting around to his side of the tent. He shouts, "F off," and we hear footsteps darting off back into the woods. And I kid you not, The most terrifying screech that I've ever heard in my life. It was like a woman screaming and an animal crying all at the same time, like there were two voices from one. I got way too freaked out, and the fear outdid my boner, so I called everyone to get into the same 10-man tent. There wasn't many arguments. When we got out though, I get this smell. At first I think it may be the fire dying out, or that somebody may have put some metal into the fire while we were sitting around it, but I got the distinct smell of blood. The taste on my tongue was like when you chew on a zipper of a hoodie or something. Everyone smells it, but we all disregarded it at the time. So we're sitting around this tent in a circle, like a smaller circle than around the fire. John is wrecked tired, but I can't get to sleep with all of us talking. He was only woken up by the screech, but he couldn't really remember it. But everyone else was awake and terrified. We were all talking about it, and David was going into more detail about what he saw on the path up to the camp. The girls are terrified. Sarah starts crying. Jason and Rebecca start comforting her. David is almost completely sober, and I'm the next closest to it. Philip is so terrified and saying nothing, but nobody was daring to sit with their back to the entrance to the tent. Some of us are dealing with it by texting people to find out if they're still awake, seeking comfort in the fact that there are other people that are awake and safe, that they know what's going on in case we all just disappear. At about 3 a.m., we hear it again. It's walking around the tents again, but it's closer now, and that smell of blood is stronger. It's like stale blood though. It smells like copper coins, but times 10. I figured that whatever this thing was, it was probably after blood. It's also making more noise now. It's the freakiest thing. It's like it was trying to pronounce words, but it was choking at the same time. Like it was struggling to speak, or it was practicing without wanting to be heard. We all just sat there in silence, listening to this, whispering, "What the hell?" over and over. We all keep looking at Jason though, to shout at it again and make it go away. But he is just as scared as we are. Eventually, I do it, but I don't say anything. I just shout loudly, and I hear it like jolt or jot, like it was ready to run away, but then stopped, and it shouted back, and I swear it'll be burned into my brain for the rest of my life. It shouted, "F off," back, like in the same pitch as Jason did, but kind of not. It was almost like it was in two voices again. It was a voice kind of like Jason's. It's hard to describe it. The space between each word was like it was taking a quick breath between them, and at the end of each word it rasped. Then it started shouting, "Off, off, F off, off," over and over again, like a cat coughing up a spitball or something. I was so terrified. The fact that it responded to me shot me with fear. If we would have had to run right there, I wouldn't have been able to. But it got worse. David took his flashlight and shone it towards where it sounded like the noise was coming from, and we saw the shape of it outside the tent. It looked like a person, but it was hunched over, like it was heaving, and its fingers were pointed. I don't know if they were claws or just really sharp nails. I only saw the silhouette of whatever it was, just the faint shape of it through the fabric, but that image is burned into my head too. The long hair looked like a hood or something in the silhouette, but this thing got startled from the light and let out this screech and took a step back, as if it was ready to run away, and then just lunges its hand toward the tent. You can hear the loud thud from the fabric as it bends inwards. Everyone screams and jumps to the other side of the tent. Rebecca is gripping my arm so hard that I think her nail marks might still be there. David dropped the torch, and it was just shining into one of the sleeping bags. It only kind of lit up the tent, so we couldn't see outside anymore. We're pretty sure that this thing was gone though, because the smell of blood was kind of gone, where it was extremely strong before. We couldn't hear it dart off with the screaming, but we were fairly sure the way it reacted was like it was spooked. The way it acted was like an animal, the way it stalked around us, but it could talk. Even though whatever it was talking couldn't have been human, it looked like one, and it kind of spoke-ish. I'm fairly sure that if any of you have any idea about what it is, you'll know by now, but I'll keep going anyway. The only other time that we had contact with it was when it was about 6 a.m. The sun was coming up. There was just a little bit of light outside again. We packed up quickly. We didn't even pack the tents properly, just pulled all the shit out, left the pegs there, and rolled up the tents. I carried mine in my hands, and we're making our way down the path as fast as possible. It was still pretty dark, but there was enough light that we could see where we were going. And we're not running, but we're walking as fast as we can. People aren't even looking back, they're so terrified. I looked back once we were getting close to the edge of the woods, not far away from where we had parked the cars. I swear I saw it. It was close too, and it looked like Jason. Not really like Jason. The eyes were still the same hollowed out, terrifying looking things that I had mentioned earlier. The best comparison I can think of for any gamers out there is the Nightingale armor in Skyrim, where it's all dark around the eyes and it has the white dot in the middle. But that's what it was. But it wasn't wearing armor, and this wasn't a video game. It was real. It was wearing jeans, but they were all dirty. Almost like if you had described a Pokemon to somebody in detail and then asked them to draw it based on your details. They might draw something that kind of looked like it, but it wouldn't be the same. There wouldn't be a comparison. Later on, after all of this, I finally spoke to my grandmother. I didn't tell her the whole story, just certain details. And she knew what it was. She called it the puka. She said that every detail I gave added up to that, and she flat out believes that they exist. She didn't mention anything about them hunting people though, just that they're trouble and they're bad luck. Over the years I've read more stories about things you guys call skinwalkers or crawlers or flesh gates, whatever, but those all seem to do a proper impersonation of someone's voice. This seemed to be just a straight up bad mimicry, almost on purpose. And those eyes. But I wonder if they're the same type of thing, and a puka is just what we call it. My grandmother told me to go talk to the guy at the old library, and this is what I found out there. The puka, Irish for spirit or ghost, is primarily a creature of Irish folklore. The creatures were said to be shape changers, which could take the appearance of black horses, goats, and rabbits. They may also take a human form, which includes various animalistic features, such as ears or a tail. Old people near Killarney used to say that the pukas were very numerous long ago. They were very wicked-minded. They had black eyes. They were bad luck and bad things. They would come in the form of wild colts with chains hanging about them, and they would harm unwary travelers. Also, children were warned not to eat overripe blackberries because this was a sign that the puka has befouled them. It's a creature associated with Samhain. When the last crops are brought in, anything remaining in the fields is considered the puka, or fairy blasted, or hence inedible. In some locals, reapers leave a small share of the crop, the puka's share. This is to placate the hungry creature to leave them alone. Nonetheless, November the 1st is the puka's day, and it's the one day a year where it has to act civilly. So, what did you think of those? If one of them stuck out to you, let me know which one it was. And if you have one of your own, I have an email down in the description that you can send it to if you'd like to. Also down there are links to a PayPal and a Patreon if you would like to donate to the channel that way. And if you liked the video, then please feel free to like and subscribe and leave a comment and all that good stuff. And I will see you in the next one. Thank you for pulling up a stump with me. Thank you for watching. I'll put up a couple more videos up here at the end of the video in case you want something else to watch. And I'll see you in the next one. Have a good week.